911, what's the location of your emergency?
911, where's your emergency?
What was your emergency?
What address are we going to?
Is anyone hurt? Sir, are you injured?
Send an ambulance. Okay, EMS is on the way.
Central 8217. What's your emergency?
Control Center. This is Operator Wells, crew number CE8217. We've had a primary flash. I need you to de-energize the feeder. I got a man injured.
Okay, QSL, what is your address?
We are at 122 Southwest 3rd Street, Miami-Dade County. QSL?
QSL, understand under your 122 Southwest 3rd Street in Miami. Stand by. Mel, what feeder is that?
Right, I'm showing that to be a Simpson feeder, 9936.
9936, thanks, Mel. Oh, there it went open. Central 8217. Indicate that feeder to be de-energized. Can you verify that it is de-energized?
QSL, that's correct. It is de-energized at this time.
QSL, has anyone on site called 911?
No, sir, not yet. I'm gonna need you to do that for us. QSL?
QSL. Mel, you gonna call 911?
I got it.
Okay, we have EMS on the way. Do you need any more assistance?
QSL, I understand EMS is on the way. Can you get any other available crews in the area to assist? I'll be away from the radio performing bucket rescue. QSL?
QSL, attention all Central crews and RSs. Please head to 122 Southwest 3rd Street to render assistance.
We just viewed an emergency scenario, and today we have 3 subject matter experts, one from safety, the distribution control center, and the radio department. So Melvin, with the scenario we just watched, what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I thought the communication with the person that declaring the emergency was spot on. I thought it was good, clear, concise. That's the way we need it to come across on the radio. It makes it much better for everybody because now we understand exactly what you need. We understand where you are and what assistance is necessary. So now we can go right into making the necessary calls, whether it be 911 for you or making a call to the yard or getting assistance out there to the person that needs it.
The microphone discipline plays a huge role in this because in that situational stress, you might start talking into the radio as you should, but then with everything else going on, next thing you know, the radio's over here and you're looking in this direction and now Melvin can't hear all that information properly.
It's easy to sit around and talk about it, but none of us know how we're going to react when that time actually comes. What do we have in place to help people prepare for that time?
So the one thing that I would say is when we're doing our training, whether it be your pull top ladder, NISTO training, at every station that you go to, you should be having your serious accident what to do card and following those steps on that card in sequence. When you declare the emergency, you want to make sure you give your crew number. It's kind of important to make sure that the injured person's name is kind of kept confidential until the proper procedures put in place to notify the family in the event of an injury.
You'll always fall back on your training, and if you know how to use your tools, the radio is just another tool in that truck. Know how to declare an emergency. It's a 2-second press and hold of the emergency button, and we recommend with an ungloved hand so that you can feel that button and make sure that you hold it down long enough to actually declare it.
Okay, we've recently had a process change in this emergency scenario, declaring an emergency. Calling 911 was added as an option. You want to explain kind of how we got that option and the process change?
Yeah, so what happened was the DJSC recognized that there was a little bit of a delay in getting help to an injured employee. So what we ended up doing was inviting one of the local 911 centers to come in and give us a presentation on what happens when 911 is called by a person. And what they did was they came in and they explained to us that when an individual dials 911, they have a program that will pinpoint that location of where that call is being made from to about a 200-foot radius. So during that process of that call being made, once they answer it, they know where your location is within seconds of that call being answered. And they also have people that will work in the background similar to DCC to activate EMS and police and fire to that location and where that cell phone is. And then the other thing is they have a second screen that they can scroll to that will pinpoint the location down to about a 30 to 45 foot radius of where that cell phone is. So we recognize the importance of being able to get help faster to our employees by using the 911 system instead of going through the control center to get help to our employees.
Since we have the option of calling 911, right? In this scenario, they call the distribution control center. Is there a way to decipher which would be best to call first?
Anytime you need de-energization, you need a feeder drop, you're gonna call DCC first, right? And we're gonna, at that point, find that location that you're, find the feeder that you're on, we'll drop the feeder. But always when it's a situation where we need feeder drop or de-energization at any point, DCC is be the first call to make.
So guys, let me ask you something. What part or how important is it to know the feeder and location of where you're at?
Knowing the feeder number is probably one of the most important things you can have when you're working out in the field, because now if you have an emergency, then we can pinpoint you right away. If you come down to de-energizing the feeder, you know already what feeder you're on, as well as an address, but the feeder part of it is now we can go straight to the SCADA system and we can de-energize the feeder right away, the one that you know you're on. Addresses is important as well, but if you do have a feeder number, that is paramount.
Even if you're not working on a feeder, if you're working on a lateral, you really need to know the feeder that you're working on, because an event can happen on a lateral just as important where you need to get that feeder dropped. So instead of trying to send somebody to a lateral switch, you could just call the dispatcher and have the dispatcher drop the feeder that you're working off of and have that same quick response take place in the event of an emergency.
Actually, the quickest response you can possibly get in that scenario, right, to de-energize something,
Exactly.
is to have them drop
Get the feeder number. Know the feeder that you're on every job you're at.
And we'll find you. You give us a good address, we go into RSV, we put the good address in, we can locate you there, and we can de-energize if necessary, if that's what it takes. But just to get a good address, it's irreplaceable.
Yeah, that was a kind of one of the next questions I was going to ask. Let's just say you can't get any clear, audible communication, right, between you and the person declaring the emergency. What are the steps that you have or resources you have at your disposal to find that individual?
Well, of course, we're going to go back to RSV. We're going to look for your truck. We're going to look for your crew number. Whatever it takes to find you. And if we can't find you there, then we'll try to find the job you were assigned to. We've called the yard. What information do you have? What ticket is he on? What have you? And we won't stop until we get assistance out there.
Okay, so when someone declares an emergency using the emergency button on the handheld or the truck radio, you want to kind of go through that process of actually what takes place?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things happening, and a lot of it happens simultaneously. After that initial 2-second press and hold of the emergency button, the first thing that the user is going to hear is the talk group and emergency alert tones. Those tones are going to come out of the radio, and it's going to be a different tone that you're probably not used to hearing. It's going to catch your attention. Other users on that talk group are going to hear that same tone, and DCC obviously is going to hear their talk group and emergency tones. Their module is going to turn bright red. And the display on the radio that declared it and receiving radios will have an orange triangle on it that kind of indicates that the talk group is in emergency. Immediately after the emergency gets declared, the radios will enter a period of 2 seconds for hot mic. That means the radios are going to transmit for 2 seconds automatically without any input from the user. That 2 second period of hot mic is going to repeat every 10 seconds until one of two things happens. The user presses the PTT on the side of the radio, the push to talk button, or the emergency is cleared. Now, what's important, and I think this is a big takeaway, is the user doesn't have to wait for that 2 seconds of hot mic for them to use the radio. The radio can be used just like any other time. Just push to talk, convey your messages clearly, speak into the microphone, and it's like using the radio at any other time.
And the 2 second push and hold.
As soon as you exceed that 2 second threshold, the radio is going to go in emergency.
So let me ask you, when we're pushing the emergency button on the radio, is there ever a time that that's not going to work?
Yeah, there could be. Probably one of the most glaring examples would be if the radio's off, the emergency button's not going to work. If you didn't turn your radio on that morning, you can't expect the emergency button to work.
Well, there's a surprise, right?
So another possibility would be if the tower that you're on at the moment is in island mode. Very rare occurrence in this system today because of the redundancies that are built in. But if you're in island mode, you could still declare that emergency, and everybody on that talk group that's on that tower will participate and hear that emergency. However, DCC will not hear that emergency, and other users that are on that talk group but on other towers will not hear that emergency.
So when you get your handheld radio and we turn it on and activate it, just how important is it to log in, get in the habit of logging in when you turn the radio on?
So what logging into the radio does for you is every transmission that you make from that radio after you've logged in, including emergency declarations or transmissions, are identified at the DCC consoles with your name and SLID. They know exactly who you are every time you transmit.
Okay, so in the event that I turn my radio on and I forget to log in, and now I have an emergency, and if I declare emergency, will it still work?
Yes, you can still declare an emergency from the login screen, but now we're back to the old way of doing things where the dispatcher will have to look up that unit ID in a database. Hopefully the database is kept up to date before they know who the person that declared the emergency is.
Okay, so for the guys who find themselves using the talk around channel, will the emergency button work if you're on the talk around channel?
No, talk around is off of the trunk system, so talk around will not support any type of emergency function. Talk around is a radio to radio communication, kind of like a walkie-talkie, with limited range, doesn't use any infrastructure whatsoever.
Okay, we're going to take a look at another scenario where the crew is going to choose to call 911 first and then follow up with the DCC.
Control Center, what's your emergency?
This is crew 8253. I'm declaring an emergency. I have a man passed out, possible heat stroke.
QSL, has anyone on site called 911?
That's correct. 911 has already been called. We're standing by administering first aid.
Understood. What's your location?
We're located at 122 Southwest 3rd Street, Miami-Dade County, in the northwest corner of the property.
QSL, do you need any additional crews or resources?
No additional resources are needed. We're just waiting on EMS to arrive.
QSL, call me back if you need anything.
QSL?
Okay, you'll notice in this scenario, the crew, they didn't really need a line de-energized or extra crews to come and assist. So they chose the route of calling 911 first to get the medical attention they needed headed in their direction immediately. And then you'll see after they finished with 911, they followed up with the DCC to follow the process to the end. And at the same time, it allows the DCC control center to follow their procedures after emergency takes place, because they have things they have to do on their end.
So Tim, let me just add to that. A good rule of thumb is if the crew has to call 911, they should follow up with the control center and do the proper notification with the control center to let them know so that they could do what they need to do on their end, letting the service center know and letting the wheels turn the way they need to get the proper people notified.
I'd like to take a second and thank you guys for being here today and going over these important emergency declaration scenarios that we just went through and giving your feedback. And I certainly hope that no one out there finds themselves ever having to use this training that we just went over today. But if you do, we hope you got something useful out of this, and stay safe.